Hello and welcome to today's episode on A Brief History of Writing. I am Amrita Ghosh Kumar and the subject expert for this episode is Shelly Vishwajit, a writer and a senior journalist. In today's episode, we are going to learn about a defining advancement in human civilization, the invention and the history of writing. The episode will focus on how writing originated, what were the regions and civilizations where it first developed, the various writing systems that developed around the world, what are the precursors to some of the popular global scripts today, the mystery of undeciphered scripts, and finally an interesting account of some of the popular writing materials that have been used throughout history. The development of writing or writing systems has been such a phenomenal phase in human history that history itself is divided into what scholars call prehistory, that is the phase before the development of writing, and history, the phase after the development of writing. The advent of writing or a writing system coincided with the transition of humans from hunter-gatherer societies to settled agrarian encampments when it became necessary to count one's property, whether it was parcels of land, animals or measures of grain, or to transfer that property to another individual or another settlement. The new complications of settled life appears to have fueled the development of writing, as memory alone was not enough anymore to keep track of all the inventory and transactions. Early examples of writing were pictograms, which started appearing around 9,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the area of the Tigris-Euphrates river system, corresponding to modern-day Iraq, Kuwait and the northeastern section of Syria, a region widely considered to be the cradle of civilization. However, it must be kept in mind that the development of writing was not a one-time sudden affair, but a gradual developmental process. Before we trace the history of writing, let us understand what is meant by writing. Writing or a writing system is an organized, regular method of information storage and transfer for the communication of human messages by encoding and decoding, known as writing and reading with a set of signs or symbols. Both signs and symbols are known generally as characters, and the entire set is collectively called a script. These characters, often including letters and numbers, are usually recorded onto a durable medium such as clay, stone, wood, metal, cloth, paper or electronic storage systems. Although non-durable methods may also be used, such as writing in sand or sky writing. Writing systems are distinguished from other possible symbolic communication systems in that a writing system is always associated with at least one spoken language. In contrast, visual representations such as drawings, paintings and non-verbal items on maps such as contour lines are not language related. Some symbols on information signs, such as the symbols for male and female or of directions, are also not language but can grow to become a part of language if they are often used in conjunction with other language elements. The general attributes of writing systems can be placed into broad categories, such as alphabets, syllabaries, and logographies. Any particular system can have attributes of more than one category. In the alphabetic category, there is a standard set of letters, basic written symbols or graphemes of consonants and vowels that encode sound based on the general principle that the letters represent phonemes. Phoneme is basic significant sounds of the spoken language. Latin, Arabic and English are good examples of alphabetic category. A syllabary typically correlates a symbol to a syllable and is considered the building blocks of words. Some of the languages that use syllabic writing include Mycenaean Greek, the North American language Cherokee, and the African language Vai. The Chinese, Sumerian, and Mayan scripts are largely syllabic in nature, although based on logograms. In a logography, each character represents a word, morpheme. A morpheme is the smallest grammatical unit in a language, or semantic unit. Linguistic semantics is the study of meaning that is used for understanding human expression through language, which themselves can be pairings or groups of syllables. A system's category can often be determined just by identifying the number of symbols used within the system. Alphabets typically use a set of 20 to 35 symbols to fully express a language, whereas syllabaries can have 80 to 100 symbols, and logographies can have several hundreds of symbols. The earliest forms of writing were pictures or pictographs, and eventually certain pictures started representing an idea or a concept, and finally to represent sounds. Eventually, the pictographs were stylized and impressed in clay with a wedge-shaped stylus to become the script known as cuneiform. Cuneiform means wedge-shaped or triangular in form. Around 4100 to 3800 before the birth of Christ, the tokens began to be taken as symbols that could be impressed or inscribed in clay to represent a record of land, grain or cattle, and a written language was beginning to develop. One of the earliest examples of this was found in the excavations of Uruk in Mesopotamia, representing the time of the crystallization of the Sumerian civilization, the modern-day southern Iraq. During its 3,000-year history, cuneiform was used to write around 15 different languages, including Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, Elamite, Hittite, Eurasian, and Old Persian. While cuneiform was spreading throughout the Middle East, writing systems were also being developed in Egypt and China. It is not known exactly when and where Egyptian writing first began, but it was already well developed at least 2 centuries before the start of the first dynasty of ancient Egypt, that is between 3100 to 2890 BC. This is testified by the discovery of a hippopotamus ivory label for King Den's sandals, which dates back to around 3000 BC, proving that writing was already a well-developed practice. The most well-known script used for writing the Egyptian language was in the form of a series of small signs, or what is technically called hieroglyphs. Some signs are pictures of real-world objects, while others are representations of spoken sounds. Like cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs were used for record keeping. They were also used for monumental display dedicated to royalty and deities. In China, the earliest writing dates back to around 1200 BC, and the earliest specimen of its characters have been found at the Shang dynasty site of Anyang in Henan province of East China. But unlike cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Chinese script did not die out. It underwent major changes and was adapted for use in other languages, such as Japanese, and is still in use today with modifications. Later Chinese scripts were developed for specific reasons. Seal script was used by the first emperor around 221 BC, but is still used for seals as a personal signature. Clerical script was developed in around 200 BC for record keeping. An easy-to-read script was used for ordinary writing and printed books, while grass script was used when writing had to be done quickly, such as note-taking. The Chinese script has 40 to 50,000 characters, although only around 3,000 are needed to write a newspaper. The characters can represent a sound, a whole word, or even a concept. Chinese script had great influence in the region as ancient Japan and Korea used Chinese scripts for writing their language. In 15th century, however, the Korean king Sejong commissioned a group of scholars to create a Korean alphabet now called Hangul, to free Korea of the influence of Chinese writing. Japanese language continues to use the Chinese script. A glyph is an elemental symbol within an agreed set of symbols intended to represent a readable character for the purposes of writing and thereby expressing thoughts, ideas and concepts. Glyph was the favored style of writing during the Mayan civilization and was at its height between AD 300 and 900. Mayan glyphs were inscribed in blocks placed in horizontal and vertical rows. Inscriptions have been found on monumental sculpture, public buildings, murals, pottery, shells, obsidian, bone, vase, jade and screen fold books called codices. They were only identified as a writing system by scholars during the 19th century. The majority of surviving examples of Mayan writing are from the classic period, that is 250 AD to 900 AD, although some dates back to the late pre-classic, that is 400 BC to 250 AD. Inscriptions record calendar and astronomical information and historical events such as alliances, wars, lineages and marriages. The earliest known system of writing in India is found on the seals used by the people of the Indus Valley civilization or the Harappan civilization dating to about circa 3500 to 1900 BC. Generally, these seals were created using steatite or soapstone and reliable curing methods. Most seals show an image and a brief script, and normally the images are that of animals such as the zebu, bison, tiger, elephant or a human in a yogic position. Fascinating that these seals are. Unfortunately, however, Harappan script is yet to be deciphered. Hence, the contents of these inscriptions are unknown. For the period between the fall of the Harappan civilization and the advent of the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, that is 3rd century BC, nothing concrete is known about the system of writing in India. Ashokan edicts, that is in the 3rd century BC, majority of which were written in the Brahmi script, are the earliest decipherable inscriptions so far available in India. Brahmi is the precursor to all the later period scripts written in Sanskrit, Prakrit and Dravidian languages prevalent in different parts of India today. Thus, Brahmi is the precursor to most modern Indian scripts such as Devanagari, Gurmukhi, Bengali, Gujarati, Oriya, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada and Malayalam. Brahmi's influence was pan-national as the scripts of Sri Lanka, Tibet, Southeast Asia, including the original scripts of Philippines and Indonesia, are also derived from Brahmi. Further, evolution of Indian numerals is also closely linked with the Brahmi script. Another ancient script which was predominantly used in northwest of India is Kharoshthi. Kharoshthi is a modification of Aramaic script and it is written from right to left. Aramaic is a family of languages belonging to the Semitic family and is ancestral to both the Arabic and modern Hebrew alphabets. Aramaic was used to write the Prakrit inscriptions of the Ashokan rock edicts found at Mansehra and Shahbaz Gari, both in Pakistan now, in the northwestern part of the Ashokan Empire. After Ashoka, the use of Kharoshthi script spread to the Mathura region and was prevalent in the ancient province of Gandhar up to the 2nd century AD. When it comes to writing, one Indian language stands out, Pali, now a dead spoken language but still studied because it is the language of many of the earliest extant Buddhist scriptures as collected in the Pali canons or Tiptaka. Also because it is the liturgical or the sacred language of Theravada Buddhism prevalent in Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Laos and Cambodia. Pali canons were written during the 1st century BC in Sri Lanka. Pali was a language of the Prakrit family and was the spoken language of ancient kingdom of Magadh, corresponding to present central Bihar around the regions of Gaya and Patna districts. Interesting feature of Pali text is that this language was written in many scripts, including Brahmi, Devanagari, other Indic scripts and also in a version of the Latin alphabet. Many writing systems dating back to the Bronze Age, that is 3300 to 1200 BC, remains a mystery till date. The difficulty in deciphering these systems arise from the lack of known language descendants or from the language being entirely isolated or from insufficient examples of text that have been found, and even, such as in the case of Vinaya, southeastern Europe, from the question of whether the symbols actually constitute a writing system at all. Some of the writings that continue to be a mystery are Indus script used during Indus Valley civilization between 3300 to 1900 BC. The Elamite script used in Elam, the present day Iran, around 3200 BC. Linear A and Cretan hieroglyphs used in Crete Islands, Greece, around 1900 BC. Both scripts are believed to be an example of the Minoan language, popular during the Minoan civilization that flourished in Crete Island. The Wadi el-Hol script from the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt, dating back to 1800 BC. The Byblos syllabary from the city of Byblos, modern Lebanon, circa 1700 BC. Mesoamerican scripts. Mesoamerica is a region and cultural area in America, extending approximately from central Mexico to Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua and northern Costa Rica, within which a number of pre-Columbian societies flourished before the Spanish colonization of the Americans in the 15th and 16th century. While most writing systems use visual medium or eyes to read or decode the signs and symbols, writing systems have also been developed for the visually impaired. These writing systems are called tactile writing and use tactile alphabets. A tactile alphabet is a system of writing that can be read by touch. Currently, the Braille system is the most widely used tactile writing system, though a number of other tactile alphabets, including the Moon type, Valentin Avey system, James Gall's triangular alphabet, Edmund Fry's system, and Jacob Snyder's system have also been developed. Braille was developed by a Frenchman, Louis Braille, who went blind following a childhood accident. Another tactile writing system that is gaining popularity is the Moon system of embossed reading, commonly known as the Moon type. Moon or Moon alphabets. Moon system uses embossed symbols mostly derived from the Latin script but highly simplified. The Moon type was developed by Dr. William Moon between 1818 and 1894, who hailed from Brighton, Sussex in England. Dr. Moon was born with full sight but went blind at the age of 21 after a bout of scarlet fever. The history of writing cannot be complete without mentioning writing materials. Writing material refers to the base that provides the surfaces on which humans use writing instruments to inscribe writings. Various civilizations have used numerous materials for writing, including clay, shells, bones, skin, wood, metals, stone, and more. Some were long-lasting due to their convenience, and others went into oblivion soon with the discovery or invention of better writing materials. Some of the popular writing materials in history are clay tablets of 3100 BC. In the river plains of Mesopotamia, where writing first developed, clay is an easily available commodity. It became the writing material of the temple scribes. Clay tablets dried hard in the sun make an almost indestructible temple archive. The Egyptian papyrus. Around 3000 BC, Egyptians began making a flexible, smooth surface, which would accept and retain ink without blur or smudge. It is known by the name of the aquatic plant which provides the structure, papyrus, found along the Nile River system. Papyrus has remained in regular use longer than any other material in the history of written documents. Bamboo books from 1500 BC, China. Bamboo, an indigenous plant in China, proved to be as convenient a writing material as the papyrus in Egypt. Chinese characters in the early period were written in vertical columns, so a thin strip of bamboo was ideal for a single column. Wax, leaves, and wood from the 5th century BC. In many parts of the ancient world, people carried renewable notebooks. They were small tablets with a wax surface. After being written on, the wax could be warmed and smoothed over for use on another occasion. Scribes in all civilizations were adept at making use of local materials. Palm trees provided the leaves for documents in parts of India. The earliest known Buddhist texts are written on strips of birch bark. Parchment from the 2nd century BC. Parchment is lime-treated animal hide smoothened on both sides. During the 2nd century BC, people in the region of the Mediterranean began using parchment for writing. By the 2nd century AD, parchment became a serious rival to papyrus. From the 4th until the 15th centuries, it was the standard writing surface of medieval European scribes. Paper from 105 AD onwards. Chinese tradition attributes one of the most wide-reaching of inventions to a eunuch at the imperial court of the Han dynasty by the name of Kai Lun in the year 105 AD. Paper appears to have become relatively common by the 2nd century AD, as fragments from those times have been discovered. But it took another 1,000 years for paper-making secrets to reach Europe. From rags to wood, pulp paper, 19th century. Until the 19th century, rags, that is discarded and decayed old clothes, was the main ingredient for paper making. But developments in the 19th century, such as the population explosion, greater prosperity, wider education, and the invention of steam press, led to an ever greater demand for paper. The supply of rags could not meet the need. Paper makers first tried esparto grass as a substitute. Then it was discovered in Maine and Massachusetts in the 1860s that wood could be pulped and turned into paper. Discovery of the new way of making paper resulted into the emergence of a new phenomena called mass media, as it facilitated mass printing of newspapers. So, coming to the end of this episode, we have learnt about the genesis of writing, which forever enhanced humans' ability to transfer information, ideas and concepts from one individual to another, from one generation to another, transgressing space and time, and has been a critical anthropological advantageous feature of humans as compared to other species. We also learned about the various historical developments around the world and about various writing materials that have been in use for writing. And as the saying goes, writing makes a person perfect. So keep writing. That's all in this episode. We will be back soon with another related interesting episode soon. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.